Right, let's get one thing straight. If your company is heading towards liquidation, you are facing one of the biggest and toughest challenges a business owner can encounter. It is not just about closing shop, it is about navigating a minefield of legal obligations, protecting your reputation, and most importantly, avoiding personal financial ruin. Now, if you think liquidation is just a simple shutdown, you can be dead wrong. And here's the real truth. And you need to know this before it's too late. Now, the reason I know this, it's Chris Worden, Director First, is I've been through the liquidation process myself. That is why I got into this industry, and that is why I am doing these videos for your benefit, to help you avoid the many pitfalls that there are in the UK insolvency process. Now, let's talk about what is liquidation. Liquidation is the process of closing down a limited company, and if there are any assets or any cash, an insolvency practitioner will distribute those assets to pay off its debts. In lots of cases, there's nothing to distribute, okay? Once that process is complete, the company ceases to exist. In the UK, there's sort of three types, main types of liquidation. One is a creditor's voluntary liquidation, and this occurs when a company is insolvent, can't afford to pay its debts on time, and the directors choose to voluntarily liquidate the company. Generally, it's normally the best option to sort of control the situation, minimise the damage, and get the best outcome for everybody, including you, the director. But sometimes the director doesn't put the company into voluntary liquidation, and they wait and they get compulsory liquidated. And this is when a creditor will force a company into liquidation through a court order. The biggest petitioner of these winding up petitions is HMRC right now. You know, if you are owing sort of HMRC 50 grand plus, be very careful, because if they don't get the money from there, eventually they're going to wind you up. And finally, a members voluntary liquidation, or MVL for short. This is for solvent companies, and that's where the directors and shareholders agree to liquidate the company, and it's mainly for a tax efficiency, or when the company's fulfilled its purpose. So MVL, you pay off all your debts, you've got a pot of money left, you distribute it to creditors. Now, understanding these types is crucial, because each one has different implications for the directors and shareholders and creditors. Now, I want to talk about the warning signs that will lead to liquidation, because before you find yourself in a liquidation scenario, there are normally plenty of warning signs that your business is in trouble. I mean, persistent cash flow problems. If you're constantly struggling to pay your bills or meet payroll, major red flag, you know. Another one's mounting debts. When your debts start piling up and you're borrowing more just to stay afloat, liquidation could be on the very near horizon. If you can't secure funding, you know, if lenders or investors are unwilling to provide additional capital, it's a sign that they've lost confidence in your business's future. And obviously, creditor pressure, you know. If you're consistently getting chased by creditors for payments, they're consistently threatening legal action, it's time to, you know, consider the options carefully. Now, as long as you can recognise these signs early, it can give you a chance to take some corrective action, really, before, you know, insolvency and liquidation becomes inevitable. I mean, let me tell you about the process of like a voluntary liquidation. Obviously, it's the most common form of liquidation for insolvent companies to use. And here is how it will typically unfold. First of all, a director will go, you know what, realise the company can't pay its debts, and they decide that liquidation is the best course of action. They find an insolvency practitioner. Dear God, if you watch my videos, please ring me. But if you don't ring me, that's cool. But make sure that you find an insolvency practitioner that's trusted, reputable, has lots and lots of reviews. Remember, I'm not the insolvency practitioner here, but I work with licensed insolvency practitioners who I've worked with for years and years. Now, when you appoint the insolvency practitioner, or IP for short, it's their job to manage the liquidation process. They will take control of the company and if it's assets, and if there is assets, it's their job to sell them off. They'll call a shareholder meeting, and a meeting is held where the shareholders formally agree to wind up the company, a resolution is passed, Just so you know, you need 75% of shareholders to get a company to agree to put a company into liquidation. Then there is a creditors meeting, and a meeting is arranged for the creditors where they can question the IP and discuss the company's affairs. In some cases, a creditor can also vote to appoint a different IP if they choose. Now, it's highly likely if you're a director there who owes, I don't know, HMRC 60, 70 grand, do you owe a bounce back loan, you might owe a C bills or suppliers. Most creditors meetings at them level, nobody turns up. They're done on the phone, they're not done in person, they're just a formality. Now, once the IP has taken control of the company, they also take control of the assets and they sell them and distribute the proceeds to creditors according to the hierarchy of creditors. Now, this is important. Now, once all that's done, once everything's sold, all debts are paid, if there are any realisations back to creditors, the company is formally dissolved and it is removed from Companies House. Now, this process typically at the moment takes about 12 months. On bigger cases, it can take years and years. Now, people want to know, what is the role of a director during a liquidation? Because during the process of liquidation, your role as a director has changed significantly. Now, you've obviously ceased control. Once the liquidation process begins, you lose control of any of the company's operations. The IP takes over. All decisions regarding company assets and liabilities rest with them. But you do have some legal obligations. You are required to cooperate fully with the IP. Give them access to all company records, assets and information whenever they ask for it. So when you get into liquidation and you get a letter or an email from the insolvency practitioner, respond to it quickly. Because listen, there are personal liability risks with liquidation. And if it's found that, say, a director's continued to trade while the company was insolvent, or if they've acted in a way that was detrimental to creditors, you could be held personally liable for company debts. It does happen. It's known as wrongful trading, and it's quite a serious offence. You know, directors get disqualified. In severe cases, a director will be disqualified from serving as a UK director for anything up to 15 years. And this is very, very common right now for people who've taken bounce back loans in the wrong manner. You know, bounce back loan fraud will lead to a disqualification in more cases than not. Yes, you can defend that disqualification. You can try and put robust argument back to the insolvency service, but it happens, and it happens very regularly. Now, you as a director, you've got to understand these responsibilities, you know, because going into liquidation blind is going to cause you problems down the line. Now, I think this video needs a section on the impact liquidation has on creditors and employees. Because it doesn't just affect directors and shareholders, it's got a significant effect on creditors and your employees. Now, creditors are paid from the proceeds of asset sales according to the legal hierarchy. So secured creditors, like a bank with a charge over an asset, they're paid first. You know, next, you're probably looking at HMRC, they're a preference creditor. So HMRC, if there's no charge holder and there is a dividend, they'll be paid before unsecured creditors. In fact, people like suppliers and directors, they generally don't get anything. They're often left with little or nothing. Now, if you go into liquidation, your employees are usually made redundant. Now, if they are made redundant, they're entitled to claim redundancy pay, unpaid wages, and all other statutory entitlements, and they get it from the government's redundancy payments office. The payments are capped, but they can get notice pay. They can get unpaid holiday pay pro rata. This process of liquidation is difficult for everyone, and that's why it's important to handle it with transparently and act as responsibly as possible. Now, before you jump straight into liquidation, you've got to consider alternative options that might save the business. And I say that to people, like liquidation is the last step on the train line. You know, could a CVA help the business? Company voluntary arrangement. It's an agreement between a company and its creditors to pay off debts over time, normally 5 years. You know, it allows a company to continue to trade. You know, would an administration work? Could you like place a company into admin, give it a bit of breathing space from creditor pressure while the plan's formulated to restructure the business or find a buyer? You know, sometimes you've heard me talk about pre-packs, and a pre-pack is where a business is closed down, it's become insolvent, but a new business comes out of the old business. Like it's a new company, it has a fresh set, you know, clean slate, no debts, but the directors of the new company buy the assets of the insolvent company. Remember, it has to be for market value, okay? You can't take stuff cheap, but that is a way of starting again. You know, I say to a lot of directors, can you not just go back and negotiate with creditors? You know, literally directly negotiating with creditors to extend payment terms or reduce debt, it can actually prevent the need for liquidation. And you have got to explore these options with someone like me before you make a decision. Don't rush into it. It's a big thing. It's complex. It can be painful. But if you understand it fully, you can move through it with a confidence. Now, whether you're a business owner facing financial difficulties or you just want to be prepared for the future, knowing the ins and outs of liquidation is essential. If you're concerned that your company might be heading towards liquidation, take action now. Call me. I'm free, I'm independent, I'm very, very well reviewed on the likes of Trustpilot. And I hope if this video has helped clarify the liquidation process for you, please like, subscribe and share it with others who might benefit. And if you have any specific questions or you need some advice on your situation, drop me a line. I'm here to help. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.